I'm here today with Serene. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I want to start off by asking what it's like living in Sydney, Australia.
So it's kind of crazy, lots of people, but we have an amazing park across the road from us, which I think keeps us sane.
Because you were raised in a rural area as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I was born in Sydney, but when we were little, my sister and I, my parents decided to take us to the other side of the country to grow up in a little tiny country town. We had a little bush block because they were kind of hippies, and Dad was a surfer, so he
That is so cool.
lived in a tent for a while and ran around in the forest. So, of course, I couldn't wait to come back to Sydney because that's what teenagers do, I guess. But I like visiting them now. But yeah, so I've had both.
What was it like having a bit of like, you said your parents are kind of hippies. What was that like? Because that'd be such a unique upbringing.
I can see the value in it more now. At the time, it was awesome. And we ran around in the forest and we had a great life, went to the beach a lot with Dad and stuff. But yeah, it was kind of tough at school sometimes. We'd get teased a lot for our hippie lunches and, living in a tent. But yeah, I've got a friend who's like, you're the only person I can't say, oh my God, did you grow up in a tent because you didn't shut the door?
I want to talk about when we first met because I'm not going to fangirl. It was an exciting time. We were at a convention. I think it was the Australian Book Expo in Sydney. And you were next to one of your friends, Selena Fennick, and you both had beautiful stalls. And I was attracted to both your covers and your artworks. And then something dawned on me, and I realized I already recognized both. I was like, hold up. So Interconnection is Lucy Cavendish, who is my mother and I absolutely love her tarot deck cards. And I've noticed that you have written books alongside her. You've got 3 books out now with her. And Selena Fennick has also done like the illustrations and stuff like that for tarot deck cards. So I was immediately fangirling. And what I found so interesting about you straight away, and even just what we were talking about prior, is immediately you can tell that you're a very just the vibes you get out, you're a very spiritually beautiful person, and I can tell that would have guided you a lot in your writing. And I'm just so curious to know a little bit more about you and how it has shaped your writing, or maybe I'm wrong, but I imagine it has in so many ways. So I'm so curious about how you even started writing.
I went to uni to do politics and journalism. Originally, I wanted to be a social worker, but Dad said, you can probably help more people by writing. So I kind of went that way for a while. I worked for a surfing mag when I was in high school, and then was the editor of the uni paper at uni, and then became a journalist. So I was it was a mix of entertainment stories and interviewing actors and bands, and also kind of social issues and environmental health, that kind of thing. So I've worked for heavy metal mags, teenage girl mags, women's mags, the whole lot. So at Dolly I was writing about teen suicide and drugs and alcohol and stuff. So I got a lot of feedback of people being grateful for stories and that they'd helped them. So that's kind of why I write, I think. And then I ended up at New Idea magazine for a while and started doing a weekly column interviewing people like Doreen Virtue, the Angel Lady, and shamans and psychics and all kinds of stuff. And so out of that was how my first book came about.
I also know Doreen Virtue because my mum loves her car. I'm just like, what is happening? No, that's absolutely amazing. You're so diverse. Like, you didn't go into just one thing. You can't. Okay. How do I articulate this? I'm so excited. How did you decide, did you want to sort of give everything a go, or was it more so did you want to push and see if you could write in certain, let's say, categories or niches that you'd never pushed before, or did all of them mean something to you? Like, you really wanted to make a point or to help somebody through these pieces?
I guess a bit of both. Like, I got different opportunities along the way, and I think you can change your life and your direction at any moment by saying yes or no to those. But yeah, I guess I sort of fell into some. Like my first job when I moved back to Sydney was in music because I'd been interviewing bands for the uni paper. And then next door to that office was Girlfriend magazine office. So I started working for them after a while and just kind of all went from there. Whatever became available. And then, I mean, even New Idea, I kind of started the spiritual page because that was my interest. So that was how that came about. And so, yeah, I guess both.
How did you, like, getting a column in New Idea is no easy feat. That's really amazing and impressive. How did you, what was the step-by-step for you to actually obtain that? Or was that something that an opportunity was brought to you and you grabbed onto it straight away? Or did you have to really push it and pitch it?
I was working there as a sub-editor for a while. So that's how I kind of got to know people. And yeah, when that came up, I kind of suggested it and they went, sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to know, so your first books were actually on sacred sites. So you've got, I think it's 5 or 6 of them, is it?
Well, this is the big book.
Yes.
With colours too. But, and the great thing about going indie with this was that when people said it's too heavy to carry, I made little ones for each. Just so cute.
Oh, sorry, you've just like blown my mind. Let's say you're very versatile, and it's amazing. When you started writing these, were you actually at those sites, or was it research? And what made you want to write those? What was the purpose for writing those?
I started traveling, and I kept a journal. Which I kind of always have done on and off, but I was sending emails home to people and I didn't really think much of it. I certainly didn't plan to write a book about it because Dad had always said, you should write a book, and I was like, I don't know what to write about. But Fiona Horns emailed back and said, you so have to write a book about this. So I guess that was how it kind of, the idea started. And then because I was working with Hay House through the New Idea column, when I got back, they were like, so what book are you going to write for us? And that was how that started.
That's amazing. I love too that obviously your dad has a massive influence in your support network because you've mentioned him a few times now. And I want to come back to when you said your father said, right, I think you'll be able to help people more than social working. And it's so interesting because I want to say in a modern society that we are, I know a lot of people who would have said, this will be an easier 9-to-5 job, go this. Whereas I know I had to convert my parents personally to believe in the creative spark, that it could work. And I love that you have that support. Would you say that with your writing, that has probably been, because you're by nature a shy person, would you say that support is what has helped you build the confidence and actually like publishing these, or have you just always known that you've been very gifted with the pen and writing?
I think I just wrote because I didn't like talking. So that was always the way I could express myself. And I think Dad was worried too that I would take on everyone's problems if I was a social worker, and that it would actually be harder for me to do that than to write. So yeah, I guess that was from where that came from.
Oh, I love your dad, and I don't even know your dad. I love Dad. Dad's the best. So I want to talk a little bit about your series Into the Mist, because this was your first fictional book. How did you go with the creative process in that, coming from writing so many non-fiction pieces and articles? Did you find it very, the process different in writing the fictional?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote Sacred Sites and another book in that series, and then the 3 books with Lucy, which was about fairies and mermaids and then witches. And so after the end of those, they were like massive books with lots of research, and it ended just before November, I think it came out. So I was like, NaNoWriMo is in November, and I'd never done it because I always had festivals and events to do in November. And I was like, maybe I'll just give it a go because I don't know if I can write fiction. it might be terrible, and that doesn't matter because it's only 30 days. So I just wrote like crazy for 30 days, and most of the time I thought, this is terrible, it sucks, no one's going to want to read this. But by the end I kind of went, oh, actually I don't mind, this kind of, it could work. So obviously I wrote more after that and revised and edited, but yeah, that was how that one came about.
So would you say that, obviously, coming back to when you're saying that you've obviously written these other books prior and you've had to do a lot of research for them, would you say that the research is so in regards to topics of mermaids and the fairies? I think this one was based, Into the Mist was based on witches, wasn't it? I think.
Kind of. Yeah, it's a... There's magic, but it's real life magic. So a couple of reviewers were like, there's no magic in this book. Yeah. But it's actual magic of her grandmother's a priestess, and so they have full moon circles and do spells and that kind of stuff. So a lot of that did come out of the research for witchy magic.
And this is, okay, so this is why I love you, for many reasons. But I love how open you are about your spirituality and your, let's say, practices, so to speak. So I personally was raised with a very spiritual upbringing. My mother really ingrained that into us. And so whenever I meet people who are just so, I want to say devoted to the path, they know who they are and they're not afraid to talk about it or just be it and breathe it and live it. I love it. What would you say, when did you sort of was this how you were raised, or did you just have an inclination towards this path and then you just found yourself, because you did a lot of traveling, a lot of sites. How did it sort of, I don't know, I just want to say, how did you turn into you? Like, how did because you're just, there's so many layers to you. I don't even know how to approach the question properly because I'm just so in awe.
You're very sweet.
I'm so intrigued.
I guess a lot of it is, and this is probably why I appreciate my upbringing more now than at the time, that growing up in the bush and at the beach and stuff and being connected to nature like that was a big part of it. And Mum, here we go, this would be about my mum. She read Louise Hay books and Wayne Dyer, and she did Reiki and stuff. So I did Reiki in high school, and we used to do healings together with people. And in Margaret River, there's a lot of people into kind of alternative beliefs as well. So, yeah, I'd say that was how it started, being connected to nature, and then with Mum's influence of kind of the new agey stuff.
So where I can relate is as soon as I came back from Edinburgh in March, so when I came back I was like, I need to get back to my roots, because I had been living whatever life I was living, the best life ever. And, you know, I believe in universal and nature and nurturing yourself and being connected to something more. And so I do my, morning visualizations and practices and all the good stuff. And then you go to another element, which I've always been so curious about, which is witchcraft. And so how did you personally get into that?
I guess it's funny because when I was talking to Dad about it years later about paganism, and he said, oh, what is that? And I told him, and he said, oh, well, I guess I'm one too, because it is just basically being in tune with nature, with the seasons, because he's a surfer, he knows about the tides and the moon and all that kind of stuff. And then there's spell work as well, which is on top of that. But the basic thing is just, being connected to the planet, really, and living as kindly as you can. And, it's sort of a spiritual path of, I guess, self-development, or trying to be the best person you can be and to create your own life with your choices, and then by working to make them happen. So it's all about intention.
And so writing Into the Mist, you were saying that it wasn't, the full-blown, I guess, Harry Potter magic that people are used to. You were obviously incorporating what you knew and what you were comfortable in that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of real-life rituals that I've taken part in. Some of them were actually in Glastonbury, which is where the fictional town is kind of based on. And there's also women in the mist who aren't factual. But there is a thing with Glastonbury where there's the mists of Avalon, which a lot of people know about, and it's kind of, they believe there's another dimension there that you can sometimes access. So it was just building on that as well.
I love how authentic your writing is. So just from that alone, like your books aren't written full market. It's not for, because people they're like, where's the werewolves? Give me the werewolves. I want to see the shapeshifters. And you stayed true to what you believe in and incorporated in this amazing, beautiful fictional world. I absolutely adore that. That's amazing.
Yeah, sometimes I think it is tough. Like I don't know the exact genre, and I'm always like with Amazon, what are my categories? I have no idea, which makes it a bit hard. But mostly when I'm writing a book, it's about finding out what it is that I want to help someone with. So I keep writing until I find out what that is. And with a lot of the early ones especially, it was for some reason dealing with grief. So I've had a lot of people come and thank me and say it helps them deal with their own, like if their mum died or something. So that was really beautiful.
I love that. I wanna talk about opportunity, because you are very successful, and you have obviously, like what we've just been talking about, you've gone down a lot of different paths and routes, and you would have been given a lot of opportunity, but you would have worked hard for a lot of opportunity as well. And so one that I am very curious about, again, bringing it back to Lucy Cavendish, for example, writing 3 books with her is, a very amazing experience, I imagine. And I want to know how that came to be, but also what your thoughts are on people who might not be certain whether they're looking at opportunity in the face sometimes. And I guess what your thoughts are on how they should try and find it or look in the most obvious places for it.
With Lucy, I think we were actually talking about this the other day, how we met, and years ago she rang me and wanted me to work for her on a magazine, which at the time I didn't. I took another job, but we kind of met through that. And then when I was at New Idea, I interviewed her about her tarot deck, one of the early ones she did, and we just started hanging out, I guess. And then when I did my first book and ended up giving back my advance and going indie, she was really supportive, and we did an event together, like a Mind, Body, Spirit festival. So yeah, we did that for a couple of years, and then we were at one in Melbourne together, and she said, we should write a book together. And I was like, what would we write? And she said, we should write about fairies. And I was like, I have no idea what I would say about fairies. But we did. And that one especially, it was amazing. We'd like have meetings and drink tea together and figure out who wanted to write what. And by the end, I ended up counting it at the end, we'd written exactly the same number of pages. Yeah, so it's definitely 50-50.
It's so interesting too, because I think people, especially writers, there's so much pressure on us to be successful now. And we want immediate gratification. We think if we don't have it now, we don't think that we're successful or we're good enough. And sometimes people give up, or some people go, okay, we'll try a different way. And from that one opportunity that you had there, that was a process of years. And so, and it's not only about the end product that you had with Lucy, but also the networking and support you built in that process. And as you were just saying, you have done events, and I'm sure it wasn't just her that was there. I'm sure that there were other authors there that you were networking and like working with and supporting with. And so I kind of want to touch base on how important it is that you find your niche group, the right group for you to support you in your writing endeavors. Would you say that that's like a vital part of perhaps your writing process?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is such a solitary thing, as you know, just sitting there writing for hours and hours and hours on your own. But yeah, it can be really helpful to have a group. Like I've got a larger group of writer friends, but within that two others, so there's 3 of us, beta read for each other, and kind of are on the same wavelength, and each have different strengths that it really works really well. But it's hard to, like, I think it's sort of like a coven, like you have to find the right people, and if you don't, it can be kind of soul destroying. But when you find really great people, and all of the writers I know are amazing, and even online, like there's such an amazing indie community, and everyone really wants to help each other.
I would agree with that. I think maybe people also don't realize that the eye of opportunity isn't a product and a paycheck. And I see this all too often, is that, you know, there are some people out there who think somebody within the same genre is competition, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But they don't understand that, you know, just by saying hello or by meeting somebody or taking the time out to offer advice to somebody, you don't know if in 3 years down the road they might come and support you in some way, or by meeting X person, it could bring you to a completely different path where you're doing YouTube channels for whatever reason, like whatever reason this may be, but you never know what way it's going to go. So always perhaps be open-minded. You may have a cookie cutter idea of how you think you'll become a USA bestseller, but just be very open to what's happening around you now, I guess, is a very important message to take from that.
Absolutely. And just to be kind to everyone.
Yeah.
No matter what they're doing.
Yeah, we need to send that out more.
Absolutely. It's not hard. It's also fascinating because a lot of people come up to me at events and they're like, you know, I really want to write a book. How do I write a book? How do I write a book? And I mean, there is no secret. You actually physically have to sit down and write it. And they're all like, oh, but what's the easy way? And I'm like, that is it. And then they come back a year later and ask me, and like, I'm like, so have you started? And, oh, no, I've been busy. And it's like, if you want to do it, you have to do it, and you have to sacrifice some things, whether it's time with friends or watching TV or whatever it is. You have to choose to make time.
I think when people ask, how do I write a book, that's not really the question that they're asking. The question that they're asking is, how do I become an immediate success so I can have money? And I think that's quickly why they never actually follow through with even sitting down and writing, because like anything in life, you have to be disciplined. You have to sit down, you have to write. And it can, as you said, it can be at times, let's not use the word lonely, but it's a very, you're never alone. You're talking to your characters, but you know, it's a project that nobody else in your family or your friend group will understand. And that's why you do find companions who are already authors as well, because they understand it. You're not going crazy. You haven't got voices talking to you. It's just how it's working. So yeah, and be nice. And be nice. But also it's good that people are coming up and asking you those questions, because you do need to put yourself out there and be happy to ask. Coming off that question then, I want to know, you've done a lot of projects. You've worked on many different subjects as well. It's so diverse. How do you manage work-life balance?
Not very well.
I should laugh.
That whole sacrificing things, sleep gets sacrificed more than it should. Yeah, I mean, there were times I was working full-time and I would actually write more words in a day, because it's just it's almost like if you have less time, you focus on it really intently and use that time. When you've got more time, you do the other things that, you know, you have to reply to emails and set up a promotion, all that kind of stuff that can take you so long and take you away from the actual writing. So yeah, it's tricky. But I guess part of it, living opposite this park, I think that's how I stay sane and go walk around and just get back to nature and get outside, because there's times where I've realised I haven't actually left the apartment for a week or something, because if you get groceries delivered. So sometimes I have to push myself, and it actually, like sitting at a computer for 10 hours and not being able to write, if you go out for a little while or you do something else, then you can actually get more written in a shorter time anyway. So I have to keep reminding myself that at times. I'm
curious as to how you went when you were doing like, you're obviously going from project to project, and with different publishers or magazines as well. How did you manage that? Were you sort of just focused on one thing at a time, or were you working on numerous projects at a time?
It mostly has been one thing at a time. Yeah.
It's been good. So then you can like stay focused on that one particular thing and do it well.
Yeah, because I mean, there's with this NaNoWriMo at the moment, I had this goal in my head that I was going to write a certain amount of words on my novel and then a certain amount of words on this other project I'm doing, and I kind of only can do one at a time, I think.
Yeah.
Like a day job's different, I can do that, but yeah, I've just been writing the novel during this month. So okay, December has to be for the other one then.
Yay, we love December writing. Yeah. I love it that we haven't finished it. We're already thinking about next month. We're like, okay, we'll write that then. What has been your greatest challenge and your greatest accomplishment in your career so far?
I think the greatest challenge has just been making myself write on the days that I don't want to, because you just have to. Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, accomplishment, I guess, when people say come up and cry and tell me that my book's helped them, that is kind of why I do it. So yeah, that kind of always helps. Or, you know, if I'm having a stressy day and someone emails and says how much they loved the new book, yeah, it helps.
How do you overcome, so with your greatest challenge, which is right, and I love it because again it's relatable, writing on the days that you don't want to write. I know personally sometimes I will sit in front of a laptop and it will take me the same amount of time to write 2,000 words as it may 8,000 words, because I feel like I'm just banging my head against a wall, so to speak. No, it's not that graphic, but it's not flowing, and I've now learned to differentiate. If it's not flowing, that's okay. It's not because I'm doing something wrong, but it's just not working, and I would rather take that time out to recharge, to rest, to figure out why it's not flowing the way that it should be. What practices have you implemented when you really do want to write, but you feel like there's a writer's block there? What have you done in the past, or what do you do to sort of try and overcome that?
Usually it is if I sit down and actually start writing, because once I start it does start to flow and I can go for ages. It's more the actually sitting down and opening the document and starting that is a struggle. Kind of like the gym. Like once you're there in the gym clothes, it's fine, but it's getting there. Yeah, so mostly it's, I guess, sheer stubbornness. But my hubby's really good. He's always like, just take a break and read a book or something, because I've always got a million books I want to read. I was like, I should be working. He's like, no, it's all part of it. You know, you've got to be re-inspired and relax as well. And I think if you can switch off one part of your brain for a while and, you know, go between. Sometimes I'll handwrite because that can also change it up a bit.
What has been your favourite project to work on so far and why?
God. I think Into the Mists was great because it was just like a test thing and let's see if I can, and it's turned into, I've now done 2 trilogies in that world and there's another one. And the first book of the second trilogy is kind of, my husband said to me after reading the first one, so I think you gave her friend a hard time. You know, I think she's got a story to tell. So I was like, all right, I'll write you a little book. And then that one was 140,000 words. And then there were 2 more. So, yeah, it's funny. One little thing has kind of grown into this monster. And I really liked, because they're set mostly in England, even though it's an Australian girl, my most recent book's set in Australia. So I really liked doing that as well. It's set in the park across the road from me. So that was fun as well.
Your covers. Do you do the covers for those, or does somebody else illustrate them?
All the Into the Mist books are Selena Fennick artworks. She's my favourite artist in the world. And she's also an amazing writer. Yeah. It drives me crazy. She's so talented.
You both are, though. I remember when I first met you both, and I was just like, what kind of duo is this? I was so intimidated, but you were too kind to actually be intimidated by. And I was like, wow, those are like friendship goals right there. It was amazing. And it was probably about, I think, a month ago, I actually interviewed Selena, and I was like, I need to message Serene because it just feels wrong doing one and not the other. what are the 3 top tips you have for anyone who is, or 3 top coaching tips or just practices you would recommend to anyone who's trying to find what they're passionate about but also be successful in it?
That's a quandary because I've been successful yet.
Are you kidding? I think you've been very successful. Okay, I guess let's put the disclaimer out there that success looks very different to everyone, but I think what you have achieved is absolutely awe-inspiring. So I would love to know what success looks like for you afterwards. We'll ask that question later.
I guess it would be make time to do it, and to kind of make that time sacred and not let other things encroach on it. But finding it, I guess you just have to try different things until you do find what it is. Like, I guess it's lucky for me that I was writing all the time anyway. But yeah, I mean, I've got friends who've learnt art because I'm always like, I can't draw, and I've never really tried either. So I guess if you explore different things that you are interested in, and who knows where your talents and your passion will emerge from.
Yeah.
And just, I guess, doing a little bit every day. I mean, you know, if you write 200 words a day, you end up with a book within a year.
Yeah.
Which is totally doable.
If
that's what you want to do. Know that there are hard times, and it doesn't mean you should stop. Like, there's days people say, you must love writing. I'm like, I actually hate it in that moment, you know. But if it's what you want to do, then you can get through that, because, you know, at the end you'll have the book or you'll have whatever it is. My hubby's a musician, and he doesn't really love the recording process, and he doesn't actually like gigs, but he writes the songs and he has the CD at the end. So it's kind of working through the bits you don't like, if that's what you want to do.
I guess it's basically when you do decide to make your passion, because you can do anything, like you can make your passion into a hobby if you choose, because that's what makes you happy. And I think as soon as you do turn it into a profession, it's not necessarily going to make you happy 24/7, because there's obviously processes on top of that you're not necessarily going to enjoy. Like, I don't enjoy binding a book together and create. I enjoy sometimes writing it. 50% I enjoy writing it to figure out what happens. The other 50% I'm doubting myself and hating on myself because I'm the worst writer in the world, and why am I even trying? And then I'll come back a month's time and read it and be like, does anyone else see how amazing this is? Like, it's so funny.
Yeah. That is such a big part of it, actually, because even during Nano, when people are talking about their project and the days they hate it, I'm always like, no, it's okay. That is part of it. You know, like book 17, I still hate it for a lot of the time. I still think this is terrible, and who would want to read it? And I think sometimes the doubt's even worse the more you've done. I don't know. But then there's other days that you're like, oh, my God, this is really cool, and I really love it. And so, yeah, it's just, I guess, accepting that it's part of it, that there will be days that absolutely suck, and you just keep going because the next day will be much better.
And I think to remember that if you don't enjoy the process, nobody's forcing you to make this into like a business or a company. Like, you can just do this on the side if you want, as long as, like, I don't know, I'm just such a big believer in just do what makes you happy. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be your full time, because I can guarantee if it is your full time, it's not going to make you happy full time. I'm sorry, that's the reality of it. And there are some people, like, I talk to some people and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this 120%. I'm like, not even an inch of doubt, you're a liar. But there are some people who every step of the process is fantastic for them, and that's great. I'm not that person.
No. I don't know anyone either.
Just like, I actually don't think I know anyone. I should say in my circle, we're all very transparent on the off days as well. Like, I'm eating popcorn and watching movies. We're like, you do that, sister. You deserve that popcorn.
I think it helps too when people say that. Oh, sorry. I think it helps when people say that, so that other people realise that it is okay when they hate it too.
Yeah, like the reality and the truth of it. And I don't know, I think maybe a couple years ago, or maybe it was just different people that were around, there was this big, I want to say it's a facade, facade, that, you know, being an author was like this and it was magical and it is everything and there's a pedestal here, and it's, you know, that's not what it is. And I've always found that very fascinating, and I think now, perhaps because I've been doing this for 6 years now, I think, and now that I want to say I've been in it for a little while, people are being a lot more real about it. They're having the discussions that need to be had, that it isn't easy, like it isn't this or that, and we're not whatever this is that some readers have created us to be. And don't get me wrong, I still think some authors are like the be-all, end-all, but they're people as well. And I think, you know, I know that you probably have days where you're not sure if you're going to make deadline, or you have personal issues that are going to affect your ability to be able to write that week. Like, it just is the natural flow, and a lot more people are talking about it now, I think, than what they were, you know, 6 to 10 years ago. Maybe. That's my opinion.
Maybe it's because, and authors are more accessible now too, so I guess we get to hear all of that stuff. It's not just an interview in a magazine where it all seems perfect.
Yes, it's all been played over. I love that. What are you currently working on?
I did a 15,000 word novelette, I found out it was called. It's a fairy tale for a box set, and The Snow Queen's Daughter, which is, it's not a retelling, but kind of from The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. So I'm extending that into a full book and writing this sort of, I guess there'll be companions for the young girl's story as well before they get to the end, which probably made no sense. So yeah, a fairy tale reimagining, I guess.
Whereabouts are you in that at the moment? Are you just at the start, or?
Well, the box set came out 2 weeks ago with a bunch of American authors. So that was kind of fun to do, and I had to do the American spelling, which was a challenge. Yeah, so probably early next year I'll have those 2 books out, and then I'll do another Australian fairy tale, because that's been really fun.
What is the largest goal for you that you're chasing? What is the dream that you would like to achieve for your career?
I would like to earn enough money so my hubby can quit his day job.
I have 5 rapid fire questions at the end. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favourite animal and why?
Black swans, partly because they're Australian, partly because they live in the park across the road from me and have babies, and they're so cute. And I wrote a story about them.
Can you actually tell me a little bit, because you sent me a copy of this. I wasn't able to read any before this interview, I'm sorry. But one of your recent ones. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, I joined the Australian Fairy Tale Society a few years ago, and every month or two we kind of, there's a set fairy tale and we research it and then get together and chat about it, which is fascinating. And always trying to work out the Australian spin on it as well, and how it relates to here, because most of them are so European, or Asian, some too. So I don't know, I guess that's what made me kind of think about it. And then I was watching the swans and they had little babies and stuff, and there's a swan maiden story, traditional story, that I don't love, because it's the 7 swan sisters come and land on the lake shore and take off their feathered cloak and go swimming and dancing and stuff, and a hunter comes and takes one of their cloaks, and so she has to marry him, and it's horrible. So I wanted it to be about a swan who would transform, but it'd be her choice to transform, and she transforms to help this little girl who needs her help. Yeah, it was just nice sending it in Australia too.
What song best describes you?
Oh. Sorry, I don't know.
This question, I love this question because it trumps everyone. Personally, I don't know what mine would be, which is why I love asking everyone else, because it's such a cruel question.
Oh, God, I don't know. Sorry.
Don't be. We will say one of Hubby's songs.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
feel like that sounds romantic, so we'll say that. Wait, has he ever written a song for you or serenaded you?
No.
I'm coming to her immediately. I'm kidding. My goodness, no, I'm kidding. If you could change one thing in the world right now, what would it be?
Wealth inequality, I think. It's kind of sucky, I mean, everywhere at the moment, but it's become quite obvious how much some people are disadvantaged, and yeah, that would be nice to fix.
What is your life motto?
No regrets. And the other one is no excuses. So do it anyway, and don't regret anything, because you learn from even the sucky things.
That's a double duo there. No regrets, no excuses. I was like, whew. It's a very like mum and dad conversation happening right there, isn't it? What's a unique talent or skill set that you have that not many people know?
Spellcrafting, I guess.
Spellcraft. Oh, yes. For some reason, my mind went to Scrabble as soon as you said spell, and I was like, oh, like spell words. Like, yes, that's amazing.
Well, they do say that, what is it? Words are magic. That's why or writing is magic. It's why it's called a spell. Something like that. Words are magic. That's why it's called spelling.
Tell us where we can find you. Where can we grab your books? How do we learn more about you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's just my name. My website is myname.com. Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I've had so much fun.
Welcome.
But I am going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for hopping on, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Will do. Bye.
Bye.